Good day everyone. We are the second group from Geodetic Engineering and today we are going to give you a lecture on the biography of Jose Rizal. So our topics include who is Jose Rizal, his early life, education, exile in the Philippines, and execution in legacy.
Who is Jose Rizal to common people? What is the impact of his life, works, and writings? When we ask most average persons today these questions, they might answer something like, he is our national hero. He died in Bagumbayan and he wrote two great novels. Beyond that, nothing more is explicitly said about Jose Rizal. As I read through the chapters of the book, I have come discover many more things that is admirable about this man. Dr. Rizal is a very special man. He is the man that brought freedom to the Philippines. The Spanish friars had kept the country misruled for about 333 years. A country is for people, for everyone. It is to be cared and not mistreated. Dr. Jose Rizal wrote novels that brought him hatred and an undeserved death. He sacrificed himself for the freedom of my country and his. Dr. Rizal called peaceful reform of Spain's colonial rule in the Philippines. Upon his novels, No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, which angered the Spaniards, he was executed, killed by colonists. From then until now, he is considered the greatest hero of the Philippines. Jose Rizal changed the Philippines and forever engraved his legacy on this earth through his ability to inspire and compassion for others. Jose questioned the Spanish tyranny and caused a movement that forever altered the history of the Philippines. His campaign made the Filipinos more aware of their rights and caused them to demand for equality. He taught the Filipinos how to be nonviolent and mindful. Jose stood up for what was right and reasonable. Despite the overwhelming odds that stacked up against him, Jose managed to burst out the courage to be the beacon of the light the Filipinos needed in their time of crisis. In a time where there was supposed to be no heroes, he came out of the shadows and rose up. His actions and words still affected the Filipinos and the Philippines even up to this day. His legacy has and will still inspire people throughout the world forever.
Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Realonda, the seventh child of Francisco Rizal Mercado and Teodora Alonso y Quintos, was born on June 19, 1861, in Calamba, Laguna. The family was a prosperous farming family that rented property from the Dominican religious order. Despite the fact that the family was descended from a Chinese immigrant, the family chose the surname Mercado as their last name to conceal their heritage due to anti-Chinese sentiments at the time. Rizal has a quick brain from an early age. His early education was the same as the children from an Ilustrado family which was rigid and strict. But Rizal grew up to be religious, prayerful, and God-fearing. His love for arts and literature also started sparks in his childhood. He learned the alphabet from his mother and aunt as his first teacher when he was 3 years old, and he could read and write by the age of 5.
Jose Rizal's first teacher was his mother, who had taught him how to read and pray, and who had encouraged him to write poetry. Later, private tutors taught the young Rizal Spanish and Latin before he was sent to a private school in Binyan. When he was 11 years old, Rizal entered the Ateneo Municipal de Manila. He earned excellent marks in subjects like philosophy, physics, chemistry, and natural history. At this school, he read novels, wrote prize-winning poetry, and even a melodrama, The Junto al Pasig, and practiced drawing, painting, and clay modeling, all of which remained lifelong interests for him. Rizal eventually earned a land surveyor's and assessor's degree from the Ateneo Municipal while taking up philosophy and letters at the University of Santo Tomas. Upon learning that his mother was going blind, Rizal opted to study ophthalmology at the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery. He, however, was not able to complete the course because he became politically isolated by adversaries among the faculty and clergy who demanded that he assimilate to their system. Without the knowledge of his parents, Rizal traveled to Europe in May 1882. According to his biographer, Austin Craig Rizal, in order to obtain a better education, he had to leave his country stealthily like a fugitive from justice, and his family, to save themselves from persecution, were compelled to profess ignorance of his plans and movements. His name was entered in Santo Tomas at the opening of the new term, with the feast paid, and Pasiano had gone to Manila, pretending to be looking for his brother whom he had assisted out of the country. Rizal earned a licentiate in medicine at the Universidad Central de Madrid, where he also took courses in philosophy and literature. It was in Madrid that he conceived of writing Noli Me Tangere. He also attended the University of Paris in 1887, completed his eye specialization course at the University of Heidelberg. It was also in that year that Rizal's first novel was published in Berlin. Rizal is said to have had the ability to master various skills, subjects, and languages. Our national hero was also a doctor, farmer, naturalist, because he discovered the Draco rizali, a small lizard, a Pogania rizali, a beetle, and the Rhacoporus rizali, a frog. He is also a writer, visual artist, athlete, like martial arts, fencing, and pistol shooting. He is also a musician and social scientist.
The exile in the Philippines. From July 17, 1892 to July 31, 1896, 4 years and 13 days, Jose Rizal lived the life of a political exile in Dapitan, the northern Mindanao, which today is part of the province of Zamboanga del Norte, near Dipolog. Rizal was already in the Philippines before he was sent to Dapitan. He formed a small group called La Liga Filipina. At that time, he had already been declared an enemy of the state by the Spanish authorities because of his publication of his novels. He was allowed to meet His Excellency Governor General Ilugio Desbohol before being taken to Dapitan and promised to release his father but not his sisters. After a few days, he returned to meet again His Excellency and discussed various topics with him, as well as thanking him for lifting his sister's exile. His Excellency then asked Rizal if he wanted to travel to Hong Kong, and Rizal responded yes. However, Rizal was accused by His Excellency of having handbills in his luggage before leaving for Hong Kong. This is a reference to the impoverished friars' tract, which was considered rebellious, and several of which had been discovered in the belongings of his sister, Lucia. For this reason, Rizal was sent to Dapitan by His Excellency. Dr. Rizal's exile to Dapitan gave him much freedom and opportunity to live as a model citizen and serve the people of Dapitan better by constructing famous Linao Spring, putting up a school for boys in Talisay, plotting the relief map of Mindanao at St. James Church in Dapitan, teaching the farmers and fishermen the modern method of farming and fishing, and giving them medical assistance. It is imperative that the spirit of service and self-sacrifice demonstrated by Dr. Jose Rizal to the people of Dapitan should always be remembered and emulated by the present and future generations. At midnight, July 31, 1896, Jose Rizal left Dapitan on board the steamer España, together with Narcisa, Josephine, Angelica, Narcisa's daughter, 3 nephews, and 6 of his students. Many were saddened as the adopted son of Dapitan left. In Cebu, on their way to Manila, Rizal successfully performed an ophthalmic operation on a merchant who paid him 50 silver pesos. After almost a week, on August 6, 1896, España arrived in Manila. Rizal was supposedly to board the Isla de Luzon for Spain, but unfortunately left ahead of time. Instead, he was transferred to the Spanish cruiser Castilla to stay and wait for the next mail boat that would sail for Spain the next month. He was prohibited from leaving and vicinity, but was allowed to accept visitors so long as they were his immediate family. Of course, all these delays were part of the drama. Rizal has now fallen into the critical deadly Spanish trap. The monument work of art is a tribute to all the Pintanons and to those who in heart and mind silently share the same vision of Dr. Jose Rizal for the greater glory of the Pitan. This serves as a reminder to all that the Pitan was once blessed with the distinct privilege and opportunity to shelter the greatest Filipino martyr who lived here in exile for 4 years, 13 days, and a few hours, sharing his noble life, works, and teachings. The realization of this historical landmark was made possible through the sustainable development efforts and initiatives of the former Congressman Romeo Nonong G. Haloshos and the city government of Dapitan, concretized by the artistic touch and technical expertise of the following personalities: Antonio Tuvera for concept and production, Nilo Aho Ferraren, architect, Manuel Tolentino, sculptor, and Ronel Roses, installation and bronzing. This monument was unveiled during the fourth Handurao celebration on December 28, 2009.
The execution and legacy. Dr. Jose Rizal, the national hero of the Philippines, is not only admired for possessing intellectual brilliance, but also for taking a stand and resisting the Spanish colonial government. While his death sparked a revolution to overthrow the tyranny, Rizal will always be remembered for his compassion toward the Filipino people and the country. Rizal had been very vocal against the Spanish government, but in a peaceful and progressive manner. For him, the pen was mightier than the sword. And through his writings, he exposed the corruption and wrongdoings of the government officials as well as the Spanish friars. While in Barcelona, Rizal contributed essays, poems, allegories, and editorials to the Spanish newspaper La Solidaridad. Most of his writings, both in his essays and editorials, centered on individual rights and freedom, specifically for the Filipino people. As part of his reforms, he even called for the inclusion of the Philippines to become a province of Spain. In 1896, Rizal was granted leave by then Governor General Blanco after volunteering to travel to Cuba to serve as doctor to yellow fever victims. But at that time, the Katipunan had a full-blown revolution and Rizal was accused of being associated with the secret militant society. On his way to Cuba, he was arrested in the Barcelona and sent back to Manila to stand for trial before the court-martial. Rizal was charged with sedition, conspiracy, and rebellion, and therefore sentenced to death by firing squad. Days before his execution, Rizal bid farewell to his motherland and countrymen through of his final letters entitled Mi Ultimo Adios, or My Last Farewell. Dr. Jose Rizal was executed on the morning of December 30, 1896 in what was then called Bagumbayan, now referred to as Laneta. Upon his hearing a command to shoot him, he faced the squad and uttered in his final breath, Consummatum est. It is finished. According to his historical accounts, only one bullet ended the life of the Filipino martyr and hero.
In conclusion, Rizal had fought for freedom in a soundless but powerful manner. He expressed his love for the Philippines through his novels, essays, and articles instead of through the use of aggression. He was an astonishing individual at his clip. He was, although contending for reforms through his hagiographies, alternatively of through a revolution. He used his intelligence, endowments, and accomplishments in a more peaceful manner instead of an aggressive one. That is why he is considered as our national hero.